Oh, my allergies have kicked in aggressively. But I do have lots of updates for you, so let's see if I can remember all the things. What's that? Your hands are warm. Oh, bless you. That one sounded like it went away. Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with week 2 of the Magical Readathon. Hopefully I will be better this week at updating you along the way, because I basically went MIA for like 4 days, which is just humorous to me. So what are we starting this week out with? I actually have started something. My plans are that I am currently in the, well, I just started like a couple of days yesterday, the Hemlock Queen, which is downstairs. So I'm not going to get it because I am lazy and clearly baby trapped. And honestly, I am more interested in snuggles than I am showing you a book at the moment. So we'll get that later. But I'm only like 4 or 5 chapters in. So far, so good. I'm kind of rediscovering the world. It's been a while, and I couldn't find a good synopsis online to remind myself what that's about. But that is required for me. It is the second prompt of restoration, which is poisonous plant on the cover or in the title. Hemlock is obviously poison, and I believe there are hemlock flowers on the cover. It's also on my list of books to read by the end of the year, which I'd completely forgotten about, so that's a plus for just me personally. That's the plan audiobook-wise. I'm traveling a lot right now for my job, so that's nice because I get some audiobook listening in, and then there are some things that I probably can listen to it while I do task-wise, but it's very like, literally, this is my first week, so I have been doing a lot of onboarding, so not a lot of time listening. But with that being said, before bed, I have felt the urge to pick something else up instead, and I think I'm going to do that tonight, which is, I'm going to get this name right, The Ghosts of Rose Hill by R.M. Romero, which is in for the one of the elemental studies prompts. It's the only one I haven't finished yet, which is ironically the first one. And that is your favorite scent on the cover and the title or part of the author's name. I love floral scents. One of my favorites is rose. So here we're going. And the reason that I want to pick this one up is because I do have both the audiobook and the audiobook and the ebook from the library, but it's written in verse. And I love me a book written in verse, but I have a feeling that this one's going to be a lot easier if I physically, or I am actively reading while I'm listening to the audiobook. So I'm going to do that. Probably going to start that one tonight before bed. I am exhausted because I've been getting up for work at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and that's just not fun. So I make no promises, but the plan is to start that, and that can be my before bed chill book. I genuinely don't even remember what this one's about. Oh wait, you do. The Ghosts of Rose Hill follows this young girl whose name I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce, so once I start reading it and listen to the audiobook, I'll let you know. She is visiting Prague, and she's visiting her aunt's house, and behind her aunt's house, or near her aunt's house, is a cemetery, and maybe there's not a cemetery, and she just meets the ghost of a boy. I don't remember. There's a ghost of a young boy that she becomes, like, she befriends, and he kind of becomes her guide to the city of Prague. And then I also believe there's this, like, menacing figure that is basically promising that she can hang out with this boy forever kind of thing. He's giving me, based on the synopsis and only the synopsis, he is giving me, like, Dr. Facilier from Princess and the Frog vibes, like Voodoo Man, but the Prague version. So we'll see. I'm gonna start that one hopefully tonight, and I'll let you know how it goes, how I've started it, when I've started it, that kind of thing. Otherwise, I don't know yet. Those are the plans, because those are both required for the career that I'm focusing on, and if I can get 2 things required by my career that I'm focusing on each week, I am content. So if I can get those 2 done, that would be great. G did start the quest for this time around, which is an extension, or is the next part of the quest that was started in the first round. So just like the first round, I'm going to mention prompts for that and the books I'm reading for those prompts, just because it is for that readathon, but I'm not going to tell you like, I went through this door and this is where that came from. I'm not going to do that. But if you know and are part of the quest, you know. So the extra prompt, the first one that we got that opened, the one that, there's 3 options. The one that I'm going for is the translated book. So I have a I have a manga that is in the back, which is Sasaki and Miyano Volume 1, which I've got on my personal TBR from my TBR basket, but I didn't get it to fit in for anything for the readathon, so I'm going to use that because obviously it's been translated from Japanese. So that's my translated book. It's a manga, super easy. I need to read it anyway. So that's what I'm going to go with. So hopefully I'll get to that this week as well. But beyond those, who knows? I'm looking at the books that are required for the career that like is the one I'm focusing on. And out of what's left, there is one more rom-com. So I'm thinking that one I might prioritize after the 2 that I mentioned, just because I'm really starting to get in that fall mood. And so the other ones would fit the fall mood more than this one. So who knows? We'll see. I'm doing pretty good. So I'm not too upset. I'm feeling pretty good about this. So if I can get through those 3 and maybe start another one this week sometime, we'll see. I'm off Friday, so maybe I can spend that day reading or listening to an audiobook as I do things around the house. I'm sure there's an audiobook for my library that's due back soon, so I should probably read that as well. I don't know. We're just going to figure it out, but those are the ones that I am focusing on at the moment, and I will come back to you when I finished one or have updates on one or something like that. Those are my thoughts. So I'll be back when I have new, more updated thoughts. Hi, it's been a few days since I talked to you. This vlog is actually turning into a 2-week vlog instead of a weekly vlog. At least this one is, because I didn't really talk to you at all, and then I didn't really rate any. I finished one thing last week, and then I finished 2 more things today. So I didn't really have anything to update you on, so this became kind of a 2-week vlog as I'm figuring out how to vlog right now. But I do have lots of updates for you, so let's see if I can remember all the things. The thing I finished though, I finished last week, was this manga, which is Sasaki and Miyano. I believe it's the first volume. This one was on my personal TBR, like my TBR basket, but it was also, did I mention this at the beginning of the vlog? I can't remember, but like this wasn't for a prompt, it was for the quest, which is like a side thing that I was doing. So I mentioned in the last in the spring version, because like you can take different paths in the quest and read certain things. So I'm not going to tell you like my path, but I'll tell you the prompts. This one was for a translated book. So I ended up giving this one 2 stars, and I'm gonna DNF the series. So basically it's this story about these 2 guys who met in college. One's a senior, one's an underclassman. The underclassman really likes boy love or BL mangas. The upperclassman kind of discovers this and they talk about it, but it's like a very taboo conversation and they don't really understand. Like the classmates are like, there's something going on here. And this guy's like, no, I don't like guys. I just like boy love mangas. And the other one's like, I definitely have feelings for him. So it's kind of their relationship. It's 10 volumes long. I have the first 3. We're going to get rid of them. They're not very long, but I did investigate the rest of the series, like as far as like synopsis for each of the volumes. And it seems like it's going to be a will they, won't they kind of vibe. And I don't mind those if I care about the characters. And I very much don't care about these characters. I had a lot of issues with this one. It was really confusing. Honestly, that was the biggest thing. The plot itself, I think, could have been fine, but the execution was incredibly lacking. Like this main character, there's another guy in this story that is very, very similar looking and drawn to him. And so there are times where I can't figure out which one is which. There's a lot of the times in this book where I can't figure out what is being said out loud, what is being thought, and then also who is thinking what or saying what. It's really hard to kind of pinpoint the plot, honestly. It's just all over the place. And I think it's supposed to be this like really cute story, and like I've seen a lot of people who say like if you like Heartstopper, you'll enjoy this, but I just think that the writing and like the crafting of all of the speech bubbles and thought bubbles and things like that is way too confusing for me to enjoy this book, because I couldn't figure out what was happening, who was saying what, who was having what opinion, because at some points I thought like a side character was having a romantic thought about one of these main characters, but actually it was like the other one. And then I just like the execution didn't work. So like I said, I thought about continuing just because sometimes like the first volume doesn't work, but because it's a will they won't they situation for like the entire manga, it's like I don't really care about that. So that one's gonna go, but it's really short, so like I didn't waste too much time on it. But that was the only one that I finished last week, and it wasn't even for a prompt, so that wasn't a rough time. But then today, like I said, I finished 2 books. So I finished the first one. I finished was The Hemlock Queen by Hannah Witten, which was for the prompt of restoration, the second restoration prompt, which is poisonous plant on the cover in the title. Hemlock is in the title, but there's also hemlock plants on this cover. I gave this one 3.5 stars, or 3 stars, one of the 2. I didn't hate this book, but it was just kind of okay. It took me more than halfway through to really get invested in the plot again. I couldn't find a synopsis online that was detailed enough to kind of spoil some of the ending for me. As I was reading, things were coming back to me, so like it was okay, but I think maybe going in with that and having not maybe waited as long as I did, it would have been better. Just, I don't know, like the plot itself was interesting, but I didn't care. Like there was nothing that was drawing me into this plot until about halfway things started to get interesting then. So plot, fascinating once we got into it. It is a plot that I've seen used many times before. Maybe not many times before, but I've seen this plot used before. So it's not incredibly unique. The way it ended was unique, I think, and I'm definitely interested in seeing where this goes. There is going to be one more book. I think that's it. I think if there was more than just one more, I might rethink continuing, but because there's only one left and I am interested to see how it ends because of how this book ended and where our characters ended up and just some of the stuff that goes down, I think is interesting, and I want to know where we're going. This one has to do a lot with the kind of like religion and gods in this world. I mean, the first one does, but this one I feel like is more. So I'm interested to see how that's gonna go and where we're gonna go with that plot line. There's just some stuff in this book. It also feels like the author is setting up a trouble, possibly. I don't know. Like it's not, but it does. It's not a trouble, but could be. I don't know. So I'm interested to see how that's gonna go and if that's gonna be anything. We'll see. But yeah, not my favorite thing in the world. But once I kind of got into it, like I read the first half on and off, and I just like there was nothing that was forcing me to read it. And then my library book was due back, and I said, okay, I've got to continue this. And I kind of forced myself to continue. And then when I did that, that's when I reached the point that was interesting. So I'm glad I finished this. I thought about DNFing it, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm glad I didn't based on where we went plot-wise. And then the other book that I finished was The Ghosts of Rose Hill, which was for the last prompt that I needed for elemental studies, which was your favorite scent on the cover, the title, or the author's name. Rose is one of my favorite scents, so this is in for that. I also give this one 3 stars. I thought it was fascinating the way it was written because it was written in verse, but I also had the audiobook, and you wouldn't know if it was written in verse unless you physically had the book in front of you, because the way it was read was just like a normal story. They were just really, really short chapters. So I'm curious as to why the author did that, because when you read it, I think when it's read, like even if I had been reading it in my head, it wouldn't have been like very poetic or like anything like that you would expect with something that's written in verse. It just happened to be written in verse. So I am curious about the decision for that. I love things written in verse, so I was excited, but then once we got into the story, I was realizing it like it didn't really impact anything. I also found, like with this author's previous book, how they twisted the history elements in it. It's fantastical, but it also has to do with real life history, and I thought that was interesting because it definitely showcases different parts of history, especially some of the harder parts of history, to a younger reader. This is middle grade. I don't know if I mentioned that, but this is a middle grade book, so having this be something that is fantastical and fun for younger audiences, but also has that very real world element, and like the author does not shy away from some of the harder situations. So it was good, but like it didn't blow me away. I kind of just finished it to finish it. It had a similar vibe plot-wise to that one, and I really did enjoy that story. I liked that one a little bit better. So and it did have like a very spooky vibe. There's ghosts in this book, so it does have that very like spooky this time of the year. It takes place during the summer, but because of the story and where we went with it, it was very appropriate, I think, for this time of year. So I'm not the target audience. Obviously, it's for middle grade, but I definitely enjoyed the other book that I read by this author significantly more than this one. It was good. I'm glad that I finished it, or I'm glad that I read it, because I am curious about this author's work. There's some other books this author has come out with that I'm interested to see what they're about. This, I believe, is the most recent one, too, I think. The other book that I read, definitely better in my opinion, story-wise. The way it was written, just the whole thing, I think, was better. This was fine. There wasn't anything wrong with this. It's just like didn't blow me away. So that's when I finished. But today, because I finished those 2 things, I actually started a new book, and that one is Never a Hero. I'm throwing things. Never a Hero by Vanessa Lynn. This is the sequel to Only Monster. It's the second book in a trilogy. I think it's going to be 3. The third one hasn't been announced yet. Like, there's no cover, there's no title, nothing like that. There's just going to be a third one. So I have this on audio, and I've made it 3 chapters in, I want to say. I can't remember. But what I loved about this, especially coming from The Hemlock Queen, which is a sequel to a book that I read a while ago, I was really nervous going into this one because I've been putting it off, not on purpose, just like haven't made it a priority. And I remember really enjoying the first one. It was a surprise to me as far as how much I enjoyed it, but I did. I really enjoyed it. It was not what I expected. It's a YA book, which is another like asterisk, is like could be good, could not be good, kind of depends. And I devoured it. So I was really excited, but very nervous going into this one after reading The Hemlock Queen. And like I said, I'm 3 chapters in, so I don't even know what that is. Less than 30 pages, and I am already back in this world, already invested. So this series follows our main character Joan, and in the first book she finds out that she comes from a family of monsters, and in this world, monsters, basically what that means is they touch humans and steal part of their like lifespan. and then they can time travel, and that makes you a monster. But each family has an extra added kind of gift on top of that. Her family's gift, I think, is they can hide objects in time, if I remember correctly. But the story kind of kicks off when she discovers this, because she accidentally steals from someone's life, and she is told this, and then the guy that she is hardcore crushing on and even goes on a date with turns out to be a monster hunter, and it's his like goal in life to kill monsters. So he ends up kind of coming after her and her family, and then she ends up teaming up with another monster from like a rival family. That was the first one. It ended a very like, the epilogue left a like cliff, like a possibility of more, but the story itself had a very clear ending if you wanted to end there. I'm excited to see where we go, because I'm barely in it and I'm already invested again. Like, things are happening, mysteries are like evolving, and I love it already. Like, I'm back in this world and I love everything about it. I think it's her writing. I don't know what it is. I'm just like invested. So this one is For the Prompt of Shapeshifting, which is jewelry on the cover. And as you can see, there's like a pendant and like a watch. Maybe it's a watch. It might be. I don't know. That's jewelry for sure. So I'm loving it so far, and I'm excited to continue, which I haven't really been excited for the past few books, honestly. So to have a book that I'm excited about again is very exciting. I'm using that word a lot, but I'm very happy about that, and I'm glad this is the one that I chose to pick up next. It is like almost 500 pages, so it is relatively closer on the chunky side, but I do have an audiobook on Audible. I'm listening to basically 2 times speed, so I'll get through it pretty quickly. And that is my goal for this week, is to finish this one and one more, which I don't know what it's going to be yet, but this is required for my career. So I'm excited, and I'm glad that I picked this one up, because it's turning out to be already a good decision. If I can finish this in the next few days, that would be stellar. So I'll come back to you when I have thoughts. Or I finish this book or something. I'm sure I'll come back to you when I've finished this book. But that's reading-wise where I'm at right now. So I've not read some great things, but this is turning into a good one, and I am very excited to continue with it. Hello. It's been a few days, and I do have some updates for you as we finish out this ridiculously long vlog. So I know I came to you last when I had like just, I think, started Never a Hero. I finished it, and I gave it 5 stars. I love this series so much. I go back into this world, and I'm reminded every time, and this is the second book, but I'm reminded yet again why this series is amazing. And the fact that this is her debut series, like, I looked and there's nothing else that she's written yet. So like, she's got a fan of me. I'm excited to see what other things she has, if this one is going to be as good. It's not over. There's still one more book, but there's no like title or release date or cover, like there's no information about it. So it's definitely like in the works, but we don't have any dates yet, and I'm sad because I want to know the conclusion to this. This was my favorite. I'm convinced this week's for sure. So far this month, like I'm looking at the books that I've read so far, and like it's pretty, like it's high up there. So I'm so glad that I finally read it. what the things that I like about this. Did I tell you what this was about when I came to? I'm sure I did. But like in this world is like there's like time travel elements up to it and stuff. And so because of how the first book ended, the way that the reader is reminded about stuff from the first book makes so much sense. Like it doesn't feel like the author is spoon feeding you as the reader information if you have forgotten from the first book, because of how the plot goes. Like it makes sense. So I really liked how they did that. I just like the creativity of this plot and the magic system, specifically with the time travel elements and like how you can do it and why they're called monsters, and the fact that like this is a book written from like the monster's perspective and you were like on the side of them, whereas like normally you would have like the hero and you'd be on the side of the hero. Now like that's a whole different situation in this book with like the good versus evil, hero versus villain kind of situation. Just the idea of this world, I mean, it's like I've never seen anything like it before. It's so unique, at least in the circles that I've read, and the fact that this is a YA book and I can get like some YA works really well and some YA doesn't, so I always kind of go into YA like a little dubious, and like this worked no problem. I loved all of it, and like the romantic elements in this are really sweet and cute, and like I am so excited to see what we're gonna do in the third book, because like things happened in this book. The world was expanded exponentially, and I have so many questions and I need answers, and yeah, I feel like I can't say like anything about this book because it's a sequel, and because like any element of this would spoil the first book, because you need the end of the first book. It's kind of like the catalyst to this book and like the rest of the series. But I've seen there are some elements like how that last book ended. I've seen that, not exact ending, but like a plot device similar to that used before, and I was curious how they were going to do a second book. But she takes that plot device, let's say, and does different things with it in this book than I've seen. I don't know how else to phrase it. That's super vague, I know. But like the way the first book ends, it's almost like, where on earth could this go? There's really only like one way for like the story to continue, and she goes, just kidding, how about this way instead? And you're like, oh yeah, that works. So I just really liked it. Okay, I mean, I love the writing, I love the characters, I love the plot, I love the world creation. Like everything about this book is a 10 out of 10, and I cannot wait for the third one. The fact that like I've had a lot of iffy experiences with sequels, and this one was not a problem, especially after reading a book like The Hemlock Queen, where it being a sequel didn't really work in its favor for me. I was very nervous going into this one, but it was perfect. She's a fan of me for sure, and I like cannot wait for the third book, and I just have lots of feelings. But this was amazing. I'm so glad I read this. So this one, I think I mentioned, was in for shapeshifting with jewelry on the cover. So you've got like this pendant of sorts. Oh, I'm now realizing what that is. It's Kelsey. So I have officially finished that one, and I did start a book. I'll talk more about it in my next week's vlog, but I did technically start Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. It's not very long, and I'm about exactly 50 pages in. So they're like in sections. There's no chapters. So like the first section is superstition, and then it's like 50 pages with no break. And so I'm not loving how that is being formatted, only like because there's not breaks. Like I get having the book broken in chunks like that, but if you can take the chunks and like, I don't know, have like in between things, or like I keep saying breaks in the text, like just so that like if you're physically reading, you would have to read all of those 50 pages in one sitting, because like there's no break. I mean, there's breaks in the story, but there's not breaks in the text, and you wouldn't know there's a break in the story. So I I'm not 100% jiving with it quite yet, but I'm not very far into it. I do have the audiobook, which is helpful. So it's not a super long audiobook. I mean, this book is less than 300 pages, so it shouldn't be very long. I'm looking, and the next section is another 50 pages. So I'm thinking these sections are just like in 50-page chunks. But I know the movie, so like, yes, I'm comparing this to the movie like the whole time reading, but like that is what I know. And I've also heard lots of people who love the movie and have read the book. The movie is better. Don't quote me on that. So I'm curious to see what my opinion is. I know it's the first in a series, but honestly, if I didn't have like the book club, I probably wouldn't have picked this one up. So I'm curious to see what I think about this one. But this one is in for restoration, which is night sky on the cover. This one doesn't have one, but I'll plop in another version of this book because there's quite a few different versions, and one of them does have a night sky. So that's the one that I need for that one. So that is what this week looked like. I had some decent reads and I had some meh reads. Okay, so starting off, what I did with it, starting off this week, I had this manga, which was Sasaki and Miyano Volume 1. It was for The Quest. And I think I gave this 2 stars. And then I did The Hemlock Queen by Hannah Witten, which was for Restoration, which is a poisonous plant on the cover art and the title. 3.5 stars. Then I read The Ghosts of Rose Hill, which I also gave 3 stars. This one was for Elemental Studies, your favorite scent on the cover in the title or part of the author's name. Rose is a favorite scent of mine. And then, like I mentioned just now, I Never a Hero by Vanessa Lynn for jewelry on the cover, gave it 5 stars. And then I'm currently reading this one, so I'll start next week with that one. I still have a couple more that are required for my career. So we have 1 week finally, because I combined this into 2 weeks into one vlog. So I've got 1 more week. So let's hope. I mean, the last few books that I have left are ones I'm really excited about, so that's promising, but we'll see. I'm nervous. But that's a look at these middle 2 weeks. I hope that you guys enjoyed this kind of elongated vlog. Let me know how your reading is going, how the middle chunk is going. If you're participating in the readathon, tell me how you're doing. Have you finished your career? Are you doing anything extra? I do have a quest on the side, but that one's not like you have to finish it this month. You can kind of finish it when you feel like it, so I'm not pressuring myself to finish that one quite yet. So that might be something I do on the side and the back over the next few months. But let me know if you're doing other things like the quests, or if you have any special, like, I know there's a couple of like side courses or certificates and things like that that you can get. Let me know if you're doing any of those. I did one last time, and I'm thinking about kind of doing them this time because I've read some things that fill the prompts. But anyway, let me know how your reading is going, is what I'm trying to say. But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you'd like to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there, as well as other fun bookish links, so go check all that out, and I'll see you guys in my next video.